بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم وصلى الله على محمد وآله وسلم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. One of the essential aspects of being a human being is telling stories. And right now is the month of Muharram, and the most famous story in the world from the month of Muharram is the story of Imam Hussein, the son of Ali and Fatima. May peace be upon all of them. We are gathered here on this blessed day of Jummah in this blessed month of Muharram to remember stories and to tell stories, because that is what it means to be a human being. That is what it means to create meaning out of our social experiences. And who tells the story and how the story is told makes all the difference. If you tell the story of American history and you leave out the story of Harriet Tubman, you're missing something vitally important. When I was younger and involved in sort of punk rock music, I was at boarding school in Andover, Massachusetts, and there were some other white kids from the local high school that had a band called Piebald. And they had a song called Marcus Garvey. And the chorus was like, I can't believe that no one ever told me about Marcus Garvey. I can't believe anyone ever told me about Assata Shakur. Because if you're growing up in Andover, Massachusetts, going to Andover High School, that's probably not going to be a part of the story that you're told. And so we understand the reality of the power of stories. And in many ways, the month of Muharram, has become something that many people in the Muslim community use as a way to remind themselves of these important stories in obedience to the Quranic command, فَقْصُصْ الْقَصَصَ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Tell the tale so that perhaps people will think about it. You can't force people to find meaning in the story of Harriet Tubman. You say, well, Harriet Tubman was this woman, and she lived in this certain time and place, and she did these certain things, and then she died in this year. Okay, that's all true. But how do you tell the story? Do you make a movie about it? And I tell my son before, that there's sort of levels of investment in stories in American society. You can write a book. It's very easy. You just get on your computer, get on your phone, type in words, and you can go on Lulu or Amazon and publish it, yourself. Super simple. And then people make graphic novels. They have to, in addition to writing the story, they have to then draw the pictures with their hand. But one person can do it. It takes a long time and you have to be a good artist, but you can do it. And that graphic novel can become, really successful and tell people all sorts of powerful stories. And then, even that graphic novel can be picked up by Hollywood and then turned into a movie. And so that thing that one person created and took, let's say 6 months of full-time work to create, is now $100 million is invested into bringing that story to life. And we see this happen over and over again. And if you understand how storytelling works in American culture, people clearly go to bookstores looking for books and graphic novels, which someone just came up with at the top of their head and wrote it down and drew some pictures. And then they say, that's going to be a $300 million blockbuster. So I'm willing to get the studio to put $100 million into it, right? And so there's levels of investment in storytelling. And what it means to be a Muslim is to invest at the highest level in the storytelling about the prophets of God and the other representatives of God, right? We see movies like The Message or Muhammad Rasulullah, a message coming out of primarily Egypt, Mustafa Akkad and Muhammad Rasulullah, Muhammad the Messenger of God, coming out of Iran. Majidi is the filmmaker's name. And so, those were $100 million productions or whatever the equivalent was in the 1970s was the message was made. And if we really love story, we will invest in it, we will honor it, and we will sacrifice for it, and we'll put $100 million into it. Right? But unfortunately, we live in a time and in a place where we're not part of that kind of community. No one in Hollywood is going to make a blockbuster about Imam Hussein in Karbala to make us cry, right? So we, as the miskeen Muslim minority of America, the sort of bichara Muslim minority of America, the ones who are just sort of without wealth and without power, we do the best we can. We write songs, we write poetry, we make little YouTube clips and Instagram clips. We live a little Friday khutbah in this old building. Inshallah, one day we'll have a huge Husseiniya glittering and gleaming for the beautiful calligraphy, calling out the beautiful legacy of the Ahlul Bayt for all to see publicly, right? But we're not there yet as a community. Alhamdulillah, we now have an NBA MVP, or maybe the second NBA MVP who's Muslim. Inshallah, someone will tell him about Ahlul Bayt. I don't think he knows much about it, but we have these different windows into American society. We had Spike Lee, who was not a Muslim, but he made Malcolm X, told that story. We have little moments where we get like a little glimmer of the possibility. But the point is, what is the story telling us? Why are we even telling the story? The Quran says in Surah Al-Ahzab, which is the 33rd chapter, in verse 23, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه فمنهم من قضى نحبه ومنهم من ينتظر وما بدلوا تبديلا. Among the faithful are rijal, men. Now, it's very important. Rijal in Arabic Islamic discourse can be men or women. Technically, it's men, right? But it is often used just in talking about someone who is of firm steadfastness in their spiritual life. They are rijal, right? That's just part of the Arabic discourse. Among the faithful are rijal, who fulfill what they have pledged to Allah. Of them are some who have fulfilled their pledge, and of them are some who still wait, and they have not changed in the least. Meaning, there are people that have given their whole lives for Allah and the Messenger of Allah and the family of the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. May peace and blessings be upon them. There are people, men and women, across time and place, across cultures, across the centuries, who have given everything they have for this deen. And whenever we are feeling weak, whenever we are feeling like we're going to falter, whenever we are feeling like it's too much to carry this burden ourselves and our time and place, what are they going to say if I wear hijab? What are they going to say if I show up with a beard and a kufi? What are they going to say if I say qaqamat salah and I pray dhuhr in the office? What are they going to say when, sorry, I can't have lunch with you because it's the month of Ramadan and I'm fasting? What are they going to say when, sorry, I'm not going to come with you to the bar and business school because that's not something we do as Muslims? What are they going to say when I say, yes, I support Palestine. Yes, I support the struggle against Zionism, right? And you can quote me on that. What are they going to do to me? What are they going to do to me? I'm so fearful. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my money. I'm going to lose my prestige. I'm going to lose something that I think is so valuable And I try to come up with reasons to justify it. Well, my parents, they came from this other place where things are tough and they tried so hard to get it. And I got to make sure that I become a doctor, sure that I get a law degree, sure that I become an engineer, sure that I become a tenured professor. I have to have some sort of money. I have to have some sort of prestige. I have to have some sort of place in the society that acknowledges my value as a human being according to the standards that were set not by Muslims, but by white men going back, like me, going back to people like Calvin Coolidge, people like Abraham Lincoln, people like George Washington, and so on and so forth, right? So if that's your standard, you want to be like them, fine, right? But I was born with that privilege, and I don't want to be like them. I want to be like Muslim ibn Awsajah radiallahu anhu. I want to be like an Arab man from the 7th century who gave his life for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. That is where my heart lies. And I feel blessed to be able to stand before you on this day and on YouTube and say that, to say the words Muslim ibn Awsajah coming out of my mouth. There's nothing that I've done in my life that makes me worthy of that blessing. So I want to take the remainder of the time to tell the story of Muslim ibn Awsajah because I find it so meaningful. Muslim ibn Awsajah was a Sahabi, companion of the Prophet, radiallahu anhu. Muslim ibn Awsajah was a Hafiz of Quran. But for 15 years in this community, I never once heard his name. For 15 years. But people that claim to love Ahlul Bayt, people that claim to represent this deen, never once mentioned the name of Muslim ibn Awsajah. And then when I started talking about Imam Hussein, and I started talking about Sayyidah Fatima, and I started talking about Imam Ali and asking questions, what did they say? We love Ahlul Bayt. We love Ahlul Bayt. Why are you doing this, David? Why are you going down this road? Well, because I discovered people like Muslim ibn Awsajah, a Sahabi who's a Hafiz of Quran that they never happened to mention in 15 years. Not in when we were doing ziyarah in Syria, not when we were doing ziyarah in Urdun, not when we were doing ziyarah in Baqi, not when we were doing the dars in Damascus, not when we were making Hajj or Umrah in Mecca and Medina. Not once. Other names every single day. Every single day. You can say those same names over and over and over again. Every khutbah, every dars, mention those names, and no one would once blink an eye. And yet for 15 years, no one once said the name of Muslim ibn Awsajah. And this is my chance, in this small space, on YouTube, to point that out. And it would be wonderful to have a big following on Instagram. It would be wonderful to be invited to some big conference, like I've never been invited to say that. But I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. So I keep worshiping my Lord the way I best know how. So Muslim ibn Awsajah was a Sahabi and a Hafiz of Quran, and he was devoted to the family of the Prophet. He was convinced that his closeness to them was part of his salvation, and he remained true. So when Imam Hussein alayhi salam sent Muslim ibn Aqil, his cousin, to the city of Kufa as his messenger to figure out if it was the right thing to do to go to Kufa, it was Muslim ibn Awsajah, amongst others, that received him. But this evoked the ire of the tyrannical governor of Kufa. And as we know in history, there's things that happen when you're pushing against the status quo. It happened in the time of the Prophet in the city of Mecca. It happened in the United States of America in the 1960s, right? COINTELPRO. So those of you familiar with COINTELPRO, counterintelligence program, it was meant to subvert the resistance to the status quo power structures in America. So what happened to Muslim ibn Awsajah? Well, one story says that he was praying one day in the masjid of Kufa, and a man came to him and he said, I am a lover of the Ahlul Bayt, and I have this money that I want to give to Imam Hussein for support his cause. And Muslim ibn Awsajah said, well, let me get back to you on that. Okay, sure. come meet me at this place. That man comes and meets him in the place, shows the money, saying, thank you so much for coming. You traveled from a far way to get to this city to support the family of the Prophet. We're so happy you're here. But what they didn't know was that man was an agent. That man was an agent of the tyrannical governor of Kufa. And because he was then able to then go out and identify those who were secretly supporting Imam Hussein, Muslim ibn Aqil was killed. He was taken, he was thrown from the highest part, part of the governor's palace, they say, and then he was dragged through the streets. Hani ibn Urwa, the home in which this man had brought the money, he was killed. So what does Muslim ibn Asad have to do? He has to go into hiding, he has to flee. So he goes into hiding in the city of Kufa. But he knows that Imam Hussein is coming. And he knows that what's going to happen. So what does he do? He tries his hardest to get to Imam Hussein. He sneaks out of the city of Kufa and he arrives finally in the company of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And he says, Labbayka ya Hussein. I'm here, O Hussein. I'm at your service, Ya Hussein. My religion, my service to the Creator, the Omnipotent, the Omniscient, the All-Seeing Lord of all heavens and earth is through you. If I'm not with you, what's the point of my prayers and my fasting? If I'm not here to defend you, what's the point of my being a hafiz of Quran? You're the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He used to put you on his shoulders in the city of Medina. He used to let you ride on his back like he was a camel and you were his rider. Who am I compared to you? And I say to myself, who am I compared to Muslim ibn Awsajah? Would I be willing to do that? Or would I convince myself that no. This is not part of the religion. This is not fard. This is not al-ma'lum min ad-din bid-darura, that which is necessarily known to be of the religion. Come up with all these terms to absolve myself of the moral and spiritual responsibility of being on the side of the family of the beloved, of the creator of all things. So I say to myself, I just pray a lot and I fast a lot and I become a hafiz of Quran and I study all these books and I memorize all these mutun, all these texts. I'll be great and Allah will love me. But I let Hussein body decomposing in the sun, head severed for all to see, without having lifted a finger. And even worse, I go and I pledge my allegiance to the man who's responsible for that, and then I narrate 5,000 hadith to try to absolve myself of the responsibility. And those of you who understand history will understand the reference. I don't want to be with that man. His decision is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't have the right, as Murtada Mutahari, Al-Alama Murtada Mutahari says so eloquently in Adl Ilahi, Divine Justice. We don't have the right to determine his fate. But do I want to be with that man? No. You can be with that man, fine. If that's your path to Allah, that's luck to you. May Allah guide you. I'm just looking for my guidance. And I want to be with Muslim ibn Awsajah, who would have crawled on his hands and his knees to get to Imam Hussein. And so Muslim ibn Awsajah comes to the camp of Imam Hussein at all costs, knowing what's going to happen. And there's another story that is told, is when Imam Hussein wants to give people the permission, that listen, they're after me, right? They want to kill me. They want me to succumb. They want me to compromise. They want me to sell out. Really? You all could just give him the bay'ah and it wouldn't make a difference in the world because you're not me. You're not the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad, the best of this generation. They're not looking for you, they're looking for me. So go. You don't have to be here. You're fine. I absolve you of the responsibility. What does Muslim ibn Awsajah do? He stands up and he says, and this is a paraphrase, of course, but you can look up the historical references in more heavily detailed books like this, like Chronicles of the Martyrdom of Imam Hussein, for more sort of historical precision if you want. But to paraphrase what Muslim ibn Awsajah does, radiallahu anh, is he stands up and he says, I'm going to fight them. I don't care what I'm given permission to do. I will sacrifice my body over and over and over again. If they burn me, if they kill me, and I come back to life, I'll burn me and they kill me and I come back to life. I will fight this fight because I want to protect you, Ya Hussein. My whole life, everything I've ever done, becoming a Hafiz of the Quran, being a Sahabi of the Prophet, being a scholar who knows fiqh, being a scholar who knows tazkiyah, being a scholar who knows aqidah, whatever. None of that matters now. None of that matters now. Because you are Hussein, and who am I? I'm Muslim ibn al-Sajjad. And then here's me looking at this conversation happening, being like, who am I? I spent 25 years in this religion, think I sacrificed? I'm nothing. They're all the way up there, and I'll never be up there. The best I could be is a servant of the servant, right? Because how many people have carried this deen since that time and carried that message and had to be burned alive or had to be killed or had to be imprisoned for the sake of this message to reach us today? How many people? We cannot fathom how many people suffered and died to keep this story alive. And we just can sit here in comfort and peace and security on YouTube speaking these truths. So have David Coolidge, have some awareness of how small of a role you play in this great story. Muslim Ibn al-Sajjad stands up and he declares his emphatic allegiance to Imam Hussein and his willingness to give everything he has over and over and over again, right? For those of you who weren't here, we're looking at this ayah, Surah Al-Ahzab, the 33rd chapter of the Quran, verse 23. Among the faithful are men, Rijal, who fulfill what they've pledged to Allah. Of them are some who have fulfilled their pledge, and of them are some who still wait, and they have not changed in the least. So the day of Ashura comes, the 10th of Muharram comes, and Muslim Ibn al-Sajjad is ready to die, right? Like people talk about how Malcolm X knew that he was going to die. And in the Spike Lee movie has the scene where you see him walking down the streets and it's like shot from like below his chin and he's kind of like floating along to sort of indicate that sort of he's being carried along by the qadr of Allah almost, like he's just, the inevitability of it is coming his way. So Muslim Ibn al-Sajjad knows he's going to die, radiyallahu an. And he stands up along with all of the other companions of Hussein and the family of Hussein, and he goes out and he fights in defense of Hussein and he gives his life. And it is said in one of the narrations, and perhaps there's multiple narrations, that when Hussein comes to his side to cradle his dying body, what does he recite? He recites this verse of Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه فمنهم من قضى نحبه ومنهم من ينتظر وما بدلوا تبديلا صدق الله العلي العظيم. He says that verse that we're talking about. This man has fulfilled his pledge to Allah. Not by dying as a Hafiz of Quran, not by dying as a Sahabi, not by dying as a great scholar of fiqh and hadith, not dying as a great murshid, sheikh, alim, but as a servant of the family of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And if you look in this religion, you will find people wanting to serve so many people. So many people. Imam this, sheikh that, murshid al-alim that, Sultan al-Awliya that. Just serve Imam Hussein. Serve Imam Hussein. However you think is the most sincere way you can do it. I'm not going to tell you how. What your aqidah should be, what your fiqh should be. Be a person who says on this day, I want to be like Muslim Ibn al-Sajjad. I want to be like that Sahabi I never heard of. The one who saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and believed in him, who memorized the Quran and made it part of his life, but then knew that that was not enough. That was not enough for Imam Hussein to recite these verses over my dying body. I had to be a person who gave my all to keep this story alive. Because they tried to kill it. And they're still trying to kill it. And every Muharram that comes, it's another fitna. And I remember 3, 4 years after my journey into the Ahlul Bayt began, was wondering, like, every Muharram, it's like the same thing. Like, no matter what I say, no matter what I do, no matter who I hang out with to express my feelings, not just someone, multiple people are gonna find their way and Muharram Mubarak, Happy Islamic New Year. You know, what? Hey, can I tell you about this guy, that guy, this woman, that woman? Just, we talk about Hussein. Do you hate him that much that when we speak his name, you just get so upset? You gotta just deflect, detract, reinterpret. It's crazy. And then I realized that's the small price I paid. Because on the actual year of 680 and the actual month of Muharram and the actual day of Ashura, Muslim ibn Awsija, a man who's better than every single person in this room, no offense, but it needs to be said, he gave his whole life for Imam Hussein and said that he would be willing to do it over and over and over again. So if I'm serious about this deen, if I'm serious about the religion of Islam, if I'm serious about being a convert, if I'm serious about being a salik, a journeyer, what other path do I have to follow? I haven't found anything better. May Allah forgive me if I made a mistake. Anything that I've said that's true is from Allah. Anything that I've said that is false or misguided is from shaitan and my own nafs. And I ask that Allah guides all of us. Alhamdulillah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم وصلى الله على محمد وآله وسلم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Next Tuesday will be Ashura, the 10th of Muharram. Again, I'm not going to tell you what you have to do on that day. All I ask is on that day, you do something that indicates your connection to, your obedience to, your love for, your desire for, your longing for, your absolute amazement at who Imam Hussein was and who were the people around him that sacrificed their life to defend him. One year I had a close friend over and he brought something to read and I brought something to read. My wife made some food, his wife made some food. We just sat in our living room and we told stories and we cried. And then we had some food, and it was beautiful. I'm not going to tell you, how you have to do it. If there's anything that you take away from this khutbah, other than that David Coolidge got a little bit emotional, is that this is a story that is worth remembering. But it is a story that for whatever reason, in Allah's grand wisdom and the creation of this planet Earth and the development of human society, it is a story that always, somehow, comes with sadness, comes with bloodshed, comes with struggle, comes with injustice. It's like it's linked. It's like you can't escape it, right? You just can't ever be just, oh, it was a nice experience and there was no drama and people left us alone. And I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I've tried to just do it the right way and not offend anybody, not make anybody upset. Just be like, I'm trying to find God, trying to get right with my Lord. So maybe I'm doing something wrong. And there's some magic way in which you could just, for the first 10 days of Muharram, remember how amazing all this is, how blessed you are to be a part of it, and not somehow rub somebody the wrong way. But whenever I think about Muslim ibn Awsaja, radiallahu anhu, what I feel is that how must he have felt that just everything went wrong? When Muslim ibn Aqil was killed, when Hani ibn Urwa was killed, these people who were like brothers to him and who were like, part of the same tariqah as him, like, our sheikh's about to get his head cut off, and this is my the muqaddam of my tariqah. This is my bro who's my whole spiritual journey is connected to, and now they've been killed in the name of Islam, no less, in the name of caliphal authority. But how did it come to this? Right? And he could have just been it's just too crazy. I just got to run away. Just leave the city of Kufa and never come back. But what does he do? He does everything he can to get to Imam Hussein. And I remember when one of my friends was dying, I told him, we haven't always agreed on everything. The one thing I want to say to you is that you always seem to be the kind of person that if I said, hey man, I'm going to do everything I can to get to Imam Hussein, come with me. I don't know if you would come with me, but you would at least hear that message. You would at least stop and pause and say, yeah, maybe I want to come towards Imam Hussein too. So I see Muslim ibn Awsaja out front, leading the way, and I'm trying to follow behind. And if anyone comes behind me, it's not my concern, right? Because Muslim ibn Awsaja, he didn't stop to say, well, 10,000 people of Kufa are going in the opposite direction, and then just me going over here. When you have conviction that you really believe, you're willing to do anything. And that's what scares people, right? That's what scares people. What scares people about Islam, that we have that much conviction in Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that much conviction in Yawm al-Akhirah, the last day, that, I'll die. I don't care. I'll die. I'm not going to submit. Freaks people out. And it freaks people out that we feel that way about the family and the Prophet too. But what else can you do? If that story has hit you in the heart and you've cried as hard as you've ever cried, and you've told your Lord, I wish I could be like those men, those rijal, those women, like Zainab, I could stand true and firm. That's who I want to be. I don't care where I was born, what country I was born, what socioeconomic class I was born into, what race I am, what school I went to, what privileges I have or I don't have. I want to be on that team. And if you have that feeling, then inshallah, your day of Ashura will be blessed. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Our Lord, give us good in this world and good in the hereafter, and save us from the punishment of the fire. Ya Allah, on this day, I ask for myself and for all those gathered here and for all human beings on the planet Earth, whether they call themselves Muslim or not, one thing, that they may be people that are connected to Imam Hussein, that they may be people that are on the side of Imam Hussein, that they may be people who want to defend Imam Hussein, that they may be people who want to love Imam Hussein, that they may be people who want to give everything that they have for the love of Imam Hussein and his grandfather and his mother and his father and his brother and his children. Ya Arhamar Rahimeen, O most merciful of those who show mercy. La ilaha illa anta subhanak inni kuntu min al-zalimin. Wa salli ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tahirin. Ameen. Wa aqimus salat. Let the prayer